Welcome to the Ride This Out podcast, where we talk about how to improve your mental health and strengthen your connection to nature and your community, all through one simple solution: the bicycle. My name is Zach Golding, and I'm a licensed clinical social worker and mental health therapist. I'll be your host as we discuss the power of pedaling. All right, welcome into this week's session. My name is Zach, licensed clinical social worker, mental health therapist. I like to record these solo episodes on Tuesdays, call them Tune-Up Tuesdays, give you some quick tips, questions, reflections, some things to kind of get you thinking about your own mental health. This is not intended to replace your own mental health therapy. In fact, it's to encourage you to go to mental health therapy and, like I always say, for best results, ride you back to the appointment. I also have different guests on where we discuss how riding their bicycle has improved their mental health and helped them kind of stabilize their emotions and different things. So on this week's session, I kind of want to give a little bit of recap. So about 9 months ago, I came across this video on the internet of people. There was thousands of people riding their bikes through this busy streets of New York City, but they weren't busy. The streets were completely shut down. And there was over 30,000 people riding their bikes. And I thought to myself, what is this ride? How do you get involved with this? What is going on here? And so after doing a little research, I find out it's called the Boro Bike Tour, and it happens the first Sunday of every May. So again, I came across this video at the end of last year, and I had a guest on my show, episode 23, Daniel Morte. He runs the Instagram account Bikes Will Save the World. Awesome message. Go and listen to it if you can. Anyways, as I'm talking to him, I'm asking him about this event because he lives out there in that area, and he's telling me he's a pace setter for the ride. He likes to help out with it and volunteer. And so I'm talking with my wife about this ride, and I just we'd kind of said, oh man, wouldn't that be cool to do this ride? And we thought, yeah, one day we'll do it, right? One day we'll get around to it, because we got young kids and just traveling, and it's can be kind of difficult. And so I was, we had that idea in the back of our mind, and I'd kind of started thinking about it more and more and more, and looked up how much it would cost to fly out there and rent bikes, and then I remembered that my wife had a really good friend that lives out there with her family in an apartment in Manhattan, and they've always said, "Come out and visit us. You can stay for free. We'd love to have you guys." And they kept asking us about it, and so I thought, what better time to do this than to stay with them and be able to have this all set. But again, figuring out how to get someone to watch our kids. Shout out to my mom. She's an avid listener. Thanks, Mom. Love you. And she said, I'd gladly watch your kids. And so, as we talked about it more, I just decided to go for it. And, we put down money. We paid for our plane ticket. We paid for the registration for the race, because we knew we'd probably talk ourselves out of it if we didn't actually commit to doing it. I don't know if you ever experienced that, where you think about something so much that you actually end up don't doing it. You talk yourself out of it. So I thought, we got to commit to this, and we got to actually just go ahead and do it. So we set it, planned it, no more excuses. We got it all set. So finally came, we fly out to New York. We get there early Friday morning. We flew all through the night, Thursday night, and I was a little bit worried because, the flight was about 4.5 hours. Our seats didn't recline, so we couldn't sleep very good. I don't know what was going on with them. They're busted or something. And I'm like, man, we're going to be tired. But as soon as we hit New York, there's an energy about that city, and it just invigorated us, right? And so, we ride the subway. We figure out how to get to, our friend's house. We get there. And then we walk around the city with them. They're kind of showing us around. It was amazing. Awesome city, beautiful city. Got us some amazing food, walking around Central Park. And then we went to our bike rental spot. I had put money down on this bike rental a long time ago. I had it all figured out. And I had a feeling in the back of my mind, there's going to be some snags here. And I tried calling them a few times just to make sure it was good, but it's all good. And, after about an hour of kind of working with them, we got it all figured out, got it squared away, got our bikes. So we rented these bikes through the whole weekend, because my plan was to to ride the entire weekend with my wife through the city, do the ride on Sunday morning. But I wanted to experience New York by bicycle. I've been hearing some amazing things about their infrastructure there, their bike lanes, Central Park being shut down to cars. So that was the first place that we went, was Central Park. We got on our bikes, cruising through Central Park. So many joggers, so many bike riders in the middle of the day. It was beautiful. So they shut the park down to cars. I think it was like 2017. I had learned, and again, it was just so peaceful, so beautiful. And there's such a stark contrast from the city, and then once you get into Central Park, and then when you're riding around that loop, I want to say it was about a, I don't know, 6 mile loop. Did the whole thing. Again, just beautiful. And so then we started cruising around the city a little bit too, figuring out the different bike lanes. I had downloaded this app about the New York City bike lanes and kind of figuring out, the north south streets, the east west streets. Where was the protected lanes? Where was the separated lanes? Where was just, the regular bike lanes? What roads to kind of avoid? And a few times we had to kind of stop and get our bearings straight. But once we figured out those main roads, it was amazing. It was so much fun. Just cruising up and down. We got a little bit tired. Again, a little bit of lack of sleep, biking around all day. But what we decided to do is just kind of stop at this other park along the East River, and we just kind of relaxed a little bit there. Took a little nap in the park. Got the full New York experience that way, I guess. And then we decided we had shows to the Broadway musical that night called called Hell's Kitchen. And I know you're not here to get my hot takes on different Broadway shows, and in fact, I don't know a whole lot about different musicals and stuff. But this show, man, Alicia Keys wrote it. It's loosely based on her story of growing up in Hell's Kitchen in New York City. It was fantastic, just so amazing. Being able to see it there in New York and feel that vibe and hear all the original music, all of her songs, so cool, so powerful. And I'm not afraid to admit, I shed some tears during the show. It was powerful. There was so much energy there. It was so amazing. So highly recommend it. 10 out of 10. Go check it out. But one of the funnest parts about that night is that we rode our bikes to the show, right? And so I wanted to be able to ride through Times Square at night. So it was like 10 o'clock, 11 o'clock at night. There was people everywhere. This is a Friday night. People everywhere in Times Square. But the bike lanes were open, and we were just flying through the bike lanes. Man, it was so much fun. So vivid. All the lights, all the sounds, just cruising up and down. And it was so fun that I was like, let's turn around. Let's do that again. So we did. We kind of went up and down New York City, that main Times Square area. So much energy. So cool. So we were pretty tired, right? Get some sleep. Next day, what we decided to do was pretty early in the morning. We went to what was called the Blessing of the Bikes, and it was at the Cathedral of St. John the Divine. We didn't know about this, but I had reached out to Daniel Morte from when I interviewed him before, and I had said, "Hey, we're coming out to New York City. We're gonna do the bike tour. It'd be really cool to meet up with you if you're available. No pressure if not." And he was like, "No, absolutely, I'd love to go for a ride with you." And then a couple of days later, he had said, "Hey, there's this thing that I just found out about." And he's like, "I'm not a very religious person, but if you want to come check this out, it's pretty cool. I've heard it's pretty cool." So I'd be like, "Yeah, we'd be totally down for that. Go experience this." So we met up with Daniel at this cathedral. It was so big. This cathedral, this church, they opened it up. There was hundreds of us all on our bikes. We were able to take our bikes directly in to the main hall in the cathedral there, and we line up on both sides. And some beautiful words were shared there by the different Catholic leaders, and just kind of talked about why people ride their bikes, and kind of what that does for them, and the different effects that it can have on us as well. And then they also did a very touching ceremony where they wheeled in what's called a ghost bike, a bike that's been completely painted white, and it was in memorial of all the riders throughout the last year, pedestrians on bicycles who had been killed had been hit and killed in the New York area, and it was over 30. And honestly, it was very touching as they wheeled that bike in, and they had the bagpipes playing, and it was just a really touching ceremony all around. Really cool to be in that space, be there with all the different riders, and everyone's ringing their bells, and then the priest walked up and down the aisle, and threw the holy water on everybody there. And so, whatever you believe in, whatever higher power, God, the universe, spirituality, all those things. It was really cool to have so many people there, just kind of combined and feel of that warmth there. And another really cool thing about being in there is they let us tour the whole cathedral. And what I had heard, and I don't know if this is actual truth, but what I'd heard is that that was the biggest church in North America. It's massive, absolutely massive. So we wheeled our bikes all through the whole church and kind of looked around in all the different areas, and then we walked out. And so, after that, I got to talk with Daniel a lot more. I got to get to know him. It was really cool to meet him in person after I interviewed him, a few months back. And we decided to go for a ride with him and a couple of his friends as well. So we go along the Hudson River Trail there, and that trail was, again, it was beautiful. It was a Saturday morning. It was pretty crowded, a lot of different people kind of running up and down, but so amazing. And when you think New York City, you don't really think of the different nature, and the different, just being outside and seeing all the trees and the river there. And you're right there, just kind of cruising along. So again, that was a really fun aspect of the trip, is getting to meet up with him and ride with him for a little bit and talk with him some more. And I was just so impressed with, just his personality and just his genuine kindness. In fact, he brought us some shirts from his organization, Bikes Will Save the World, and some bracelets and different things. It was really cool to chat with him and get to know him better. And so shout out Daniel. Thank you. It was super fun to ride with you. Hope we can do it again, either out there or, if you come out here to visit me, love to have you. And so then me and my wife, we just continued on kind of doing the touristy thing. Went and saw Statue of Liberty, Ellis Island, rode the ferry. That was a lot of fun. And then we went back for the night, got some rest, rested up for the big ride the next day. It was a 40-mile ride, and we had to be in like lower Manhattan, pretty early in the morning at the start of our wave. So again, this is called the Boro Bike Tour. And, I was researching a bunch of different videos on YouTube, kind of what to expect and the different things there. And as we were starting to get closer and closer to the starting line, you just start seeing more bikers coming in from all different angles of the streets. And they give you, in your pickup packet, they give you these little helmet covers. This year they were like a bluish green. So you start seeing everyone with their numbers and their helmets, and then all of a sudden you come to the main street where everyone's at, and thousands of people are lined up on this main street. Thousands of people, and we're all just kind of packed in there. They have 6 different waves that they do, because they're not going to let, all 35,000 or however many people rode. They said it was over 32,000 people that rode in it. They're not going to let all those people go at the same time. That they're going to split us up in different waves, and we were in the middle wave, wave 3. And as you approach the starting line, again, everyone's kind of ramping up, getting more and more excited, and hearing the music and hearing the announcer and everything. And he's asking everybody, "Where are you from? What's going on?" And you're hearing all different states throughout America. You're hearing all different countries, and you're looking around, and again, the energy that was there was so strong. It was amazing. Everyone there, getting to the starting line, and you're off, and you're cruising along. All these main streets were shut down, and you're just flying down them as fast or as slow as you want. And the amazing thing about this ride that I loved was, as you look around, it was all different types of people. You had little kids, you had teenagers, you had young adults, older adults. You had all different races, all different ethnicities, all different cultures, religions, everything. Everyone's there riding their bikes, and all different types of bikes too. You had the road bikers that were all decked out and cruising super fast. You had the single speed, fixies cruising around. You had some BMXers riding around. You had tandem bikes. There was mountain bikes, all kinds of bikes. You even had a few unicycles doing the whole thing. That was pretty incredible. And again, everyone was all there, all combined for that one purpose of just riding and just having fun. And as you're cruising around, you go through the five boroughs of New York. Um, you're hitting Manhattan. We went all the way up to the Bronx, cruising over to Queens, Brooklyn, and then you go through Staten Island. And as you kind of cruise along, they had shut down again all these main streets. They even shut down some freeways, and you're cruising along the highway, these major, 6-lane highways. All these bicyclists just mobbing, just cruising down, having the best time. And some of the things that I was most impressed about, Bike New York was the organization that put this on. They've been doing it for, I don't know, over 20 years. And they had, rest stops every few miles to make it, again, this is a casual ride, a pretty easygoing ride. But, that to have, this sounds crazy, but just the logistics of everything, having all the porta potties, having all of the food, all the volunteers that were just all hands on deck. Everyone was doing everything. It was incredible, absolutely amazing. So shout out Bike New York for putting this on. And they say this is the largest charity bike event in North America that happens every year. And again, as you're riding with everybody, the thing that I loved as well, again, is just seeing all the different types of people, all there together. And then as you're cruising around the city, you're seeing the city from a whole different perspective as a bicyclist, but also just with no cars at all. And you're able to really take in all the art. And it seemed like every building had some really cool mural or different things throughout the city that you just felt it. Just it was a really cool experience. And they also had on every few miles they had some bands set up playing music to kind of again keep that energy moving. It's a 40-mile ride, so it's definitely not for the faint of heart, but it wasn't like absolutely terrible either. Like I ride my bike pretty regularly, so it didn't seem like super hardcore for me. And so if you're thinking about doing this ride, you have to train for it? Not necessarily. Like there was a lot of people there that you could tell were, not like super hardcore riders, but they, you could still do it. Absolutely. There was a few climbs like on some bridges that were kind of long and kind of drawn out. And in fact, on some of those climbs, you just, put it in that lower gear and just kind of cruise along. But again, just with everyone there was this energy that you just kept on moving. And then when you get to the finish line, it was so fun. They had a huge party there all set up too with the food and the music and everything. But it was a little unfortunate because there was this storm that was coming, and you could kind of tell it was on the horizon. In fact, everyone was talking about it the whole weekend when we said, "Oh, we're out here for the ride." And like, "Oh, man, it's too bad the weather's not going to be too good." But I thought the weather was actually perfect because as we're cruising along, it was a little bit overcast, a little bit rainy, not too bad. So it actually kept us nice and cool the whole time. I would honestly prefer that than being too hot. But then, so we're at the finish line, we're taking pictures, all those things, getting all of our swag, and then you have to cruise, through Staten Island to the very end of it. And then another super fun part of the ride is you jump on a ferry with everybody else that's there and their bikes, and they ferry you back over to Manhattan. And so as you're sitting there on the ferry, you're just kind of cruising along, and then it started getting cold. And I'm thinking, oh boy, because we still had to ride back to the apartment, which was, I don't know, 4 or 5 miles away. And right as we get into Manhattan, that's when that storm just hit, and we got soaked. We got so drenched, but it was so fun. It was totally worth it. A little bit of rain doesn't hurt anybody. And so we get back to the apartment and just take a rest and everything, how that goes. But so the rest of the day was pretty rainy, so unfortunately, we didn't get to go out and ride much more that day. I was a little bit bummed because I'd kind of set up some other meetups of some other people that I've met through my Instagram and through the podcast and stuff. But gives us another reason to get out there and see them in the future. So, but the next day, we were gonna fly home. Well, we did fly home the next day later that night. But before we turned in our bicycles, I was like, let's go for another ride. And my wife was her name's Stacy, by the way. Man, so cool about being out there because honestly, I was a little bit worried. Whenever I take her mountain biking or on some other rides, sometimes she can be like, "Why are we? What ride are you taking me on? Like, is this the safest thing?" And I was a little bit worried, like, man, New York City, cruising around these streets, it might be a little unsafe. It might be a little, anxiety inducing for sure. Um, but the first day as we were cruising through the bike lanes, her face just lit up, and she was like, "I love this. This is so fun," which I think speaks to the safety that we felt there within the bicycle infrastructure because yeah, there were so many cars, so many people everywhere, but there was something about being in those bike lanes and also that the drivers were aware of the bike lanes, that the drivers were aware of all the people on bicycles. Like when drivers were turning, they were checking and making sure that they could see us. Where I feel like where I bike here in Utah, it's the opposite, and maybe you feel that as well too. That you have to assume you're not being seen at all, and so you're waiting on somebody else. But in New York, it was flipped, where they were watching you, they were waiting for you to kind of cruise, and you had to kind of take the lane. You had to take those moments and just go, or else if you didn't, then they were going to take it. So it was kind of an interesting dynamic in that regard. But yeah, so I wanted to experience the city a little bit more. And the funnest thing about riding in New York City, it's definitely the way to go. If you like biking, go to the city and bike around because, we'd look at our map and we'd be like, hey, we want to go check out the 9/11 memorial, the memorial. All right, cool. Let's ride there. So we go and we check that out. And we're like, oh, hey, we want to go check out Rockefeller Plaza. All right, let's go check that out. So we jump on the bikes and it was a 10-15 minute bike ride. Oh, we want to go check out, this museum. So we ride our bike there. And we were able to get around the city um, without, like having to take all the buses or the subways. And we got to feel the city. We got to see it. We got to experience it in just a different perspective, I felt like, because, as you're cruising down, you would smell the different things, you would see the different things, you would hear the different things, and it was just like the energy. It was so rich. It was so amazing. So again, I'm painting this picture for you because um, being able to experience a city like New York by bicycle was a trip of a lifetime, honestly, and I can't wait to go back. It was amazing. So that Monday morning, we wanted to experience the city a little bit more. I've been hearing a lot about these bike lanes that they put on the bridges. So we went across the Manhattan Bridge. We went and cruised around Brooklyn for a little bit, and then we came back across the Brooklyn Bridge. Brooklyn was cool too. I thought that was really cool. There's a lot of history there. Cruising along those city streets, and again the bike lanes and the trees, and then just taking the bridge as well. So cool, so beautiful, and just kind of finding little spots to just kind of take a break and take a picture, being away from people, and it just felt just really real, just again experiencing that city from that real level, and not from like I'd been in New York before, but it was very touristy on a bus, and just kind of you were kind of isolated in that regard. You just dropped off at a spot and you kind of walk around. But being able to experience the whole city by bicycle was just unreal. It's definitely not Amsterdam by any means or the Netherlands, but it was pretty funny when we were picking up our bikes and dropping them off. There were so many people on bikes, and it feels like that's like a main attraction now for a lot of people. Is they rent bikes and then they ride through Central Park. There were so many people that would do that. They would just go for like an hour or two ride and experience Central Park by bicycle. And I had overheard some people walking by and seeing all the bikes, and they said, "Wow, what is this? Amsterdam?" They'd kind of joked around. But another fun aspect again too is when you're cruising down the bike lanes, being surrounded by 10, 15 other bikers as you're cruising along. There's a lot of delivery guys out there on e-bikes and just kind of cruising around. And there's some a little bit of controversy with how they do things there, but I thought it was really cool, honestly. And but on the other hand, if you're riding an e-bike, you can at least pedal. Everyone is kind of throttling only, as they deliver and stuff. But they also have all the city bikes out there that you can rent, and a lot of people, dressed up in their work get up, or they're going to school or professional life, and they're just cruising on the city bikes. Like that's just the normal thing for them to do. That's just how they get around. So it was a really cool cultural thing to see, absolutely. And I loved seeing all the cargo bikes that were pulling cargo trailers, like delivering, Amazon deliveries or whatever. They were just, and again, I'd been reading that they're trying to get away from using so many delivery trucks or delivery vans and trying to go a little bit more towards these cargo bikes with trailers because, again, they're a lot more agile and, a lot cheaper on gas, and they don't plug up all the streets so much. So that was a really cool thing to see as well. So again, just the whole culture, the bike scene out there was amazing. It was super fun. Highly recommend it if you're thinking about going. Just commit to it. Just do it. Put it down in your calendar. I've had some people ask me about it a little bit more and just say, "Man, I definitely want to do this." And so, if you have any other questions about it, again, just research a whole bunch of stuff. There's so many videos out there, and a lot of people, share their experience. I'd be happy to talk with you about our experience as well. But it's definitely something that we want to do. I don't think we can do it every year, but it's definitely a ride that I want to do it again, and just to see New York as well by bike. And maybe as our kids get older, we can take them out there and have them kind of cruise along with us too. So something to definitely look forward to in the future. But um, it was an amazing experience. Highly recommend it, and I appreciate you. If you're listening to this whole thing, listening to me kind of recap. This is kind of just for me to kind of as well put my memories down and be able to remember that. And that's another great skill that we can kind of acquire. It's called accumulate the positive, where we think of our positive memories, things that have gone well, and whether you record them like this, just talking things through or write them down or just kind of run through them in your mind. Because when we're faced with hard challenges or difficulties or stressful moments, we can always kind of think back to those positive experiences. And when you accumulate a bunch of them, you have a good kind of pool or base to go off of and to remember those specific examples or those specific memories that can bring back those positive thoughts and those positive emotions. So definitely, a skill that we can try to do a little bit more in our lives is and create those experiences of accumulating the positive. And also recognize too that there's a lot of people that can get kind of addicted to traveling and say, "Oh, I'm only going to be happy if I go to this place, or I'm only going to be happy when I go and do this thing." And that doesn't necessarily have to be the case either. You can create those positive experiences. You can look forward to them, and it's a good thing to kind of look forward to them and set a goal, have something to do. But that doesn't have to be your main life, right? That doesn't have to be the only way that you experience happiness or the only way that you experience peace. You can experience that on an every day-to-day basis by including some of those little things throughout the day, and thinking back on some of those other things as well. So just try to have that balance within your thoughts and your experiences and how that goes. So again, thanks for listening, everybody. Appreciate the support. Appreciate you sharing with other people. I'm excited. We got some fun things kind of lined up here in the future. So stay tuned for some of those, and I'll have some more guests on as well. I've loved doing this podcast. It's opened up a lot of really cool relationships and connections and experiences for me. So I'm excited to continue to to create more of those positive moments as well. So, whenever you're experiencing some difficult times or some hard things or have some, major decisions that you got to make in your life, just jump on that bike and tell yourself, I can ride this out.